Hey now, welcome to another edition of Refreshing Thoughts. I am your host, Chris Fresh, and thank you for joining me. This will be a bit of a bonus Refreshing Thoughts. There'll be a couple this week. If you want to help support the show and get access to the main episodes early and ad-free via the Patreon app, for $5 Australian a month, you can go to patreon.com/C/ Refreshing Thoughts podcast / membership and help out the channel. Helps keep the lights on because StreamYard is super expensive, and so is Transistor FM, where we host the audio files of Refreshing Thoughts and Geek Dudes. And hey, it's a podcast. But enough about this. If you watched the last Refreshing Thoughts, and no, not the toy hunts, the last one, I was bitching that I didn't have my Ghostbusters Mondo, Samhain and Peter Venkman. And, we've been waiting a while, a lot of financial investment in the pre-orders. Ray and Gash was closing rapidly, and, they were going to be $385 Australian to get shipped here. So, being asked to pour more money in when I haven't even received the first item seemed egregious, and I complained, and it was almost like they heard me, because once I finished recording, I got that shipping notification saying it was on its way. I was like, see, complaining does work, kids. It's what you've got to do. And lo and behold, in very quick fashion, it costs 50 USD to ship to Australia. They use DHL, and DHL is really fast. That is one good thing to say about them. And this appeared on my doorstep. It is the Mondo Real Ghostbusters Peter Venkman and Samhain Mondo exclusive collector's pack. I always thought it was a thing of legend. We saw Yes Have Some, I believe, and Jay from Geek Dad Life. They got some early review copies earlier in the year. I wouldn't watch the reviews because I felt that it was almost like spoiling it, if that makes sense. And then in August, Americans started receiving their Samhain and Peter Venkman. But look, we live in weird times in terms of tariffs and shipping and weirdness. And I don't know, I've got no information at all, but I believe something must have been going on that was holding up international release of the Venkman and Samhain. Not even Canadians were receiving them, from what I understand. And, it was a bit of a bummer seeing everybody show off their shiny new toys, and we didn't get them. And there wasn't a lot of great communication publicly about not receiving them in August and not hearing anything. Mondo customer service were really good. If you ask them a question, anything like that, they tried giving the best answer that they could without being able to provide too much else. So I'm certainly not criticizing them. Mondo's artists and customer service are really good. Logistically, there's obviously a few issues there, but he did turn up. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit on this episode. I know it's sort of old news for most people, but for me, I'm excited, and I've sort of built this up, and I thought I'll give my thoughts on what I think of what is a very high-end but very expensive collectible. Now, unfortunately, you can't go back in time and order the deluxe editions, but you can get the single release. I think they're evergreen for now. So, you can still pick up the Peter Venkman from Mondo or from other retailers. I even think Pop Culture here in Australia have him up for order. I don't know if he's in stock yet, but definitely up for order. So you open up that shipper box that I showed, and you're greeted with this. And this is impressive premium packaging. As you can see, it's the lower half of the Ghostbusters firehouse, and I don't know how well it's coming across on camera, but it does give a pretty cool 3D looking effect, which really impressed me. And you always end up feeling guilty, or I do sometimes, when there's a lot of work going into packaging, about throwing it away. And particularly, if you think these are really expensive one day, I might need to move them on. They're going to hold better value with the packaging, but this is a big box. It's going to be hard to store. We're all in space danger. For me, I'm going to use it as a backdrop, which I will get to. But that is the front of the firehouse. You can see the Ghostbusters sign there. I thought this was really cool looking. And this is a look at the back. It's, just a beautiful piece of art. I really like that Mondo acknowledges the people that worked on these figures. I really think that's cool. But this is the back of the firehouse there. Like the attention to details, just amazing. And as you can see, the sort of color scheme of the real Ghostbusters logo, I don't know if you realize that, but when I got my wife to design the Refreshing Thoughts logo, she borrowed from that, and the splat is meant to sort of be like ectoplasm, was the idea. I don't know how well that comes across. Some people feel it's got a Nickelodeon vibe, but I guess that was when Slime Fever was at its height. That is the back of the packaging. Like, this is really beautiful looking packaging. But nothing is ever perfect, is it? There's a tear in my packaging. The shipper box was fine. This was, I guess, a manufacturing fault. Sort of, it's a decent tear. It is noticeable on the front of the box. If you look to the front right-hand side next to the Mondo logo, you can sort of see where that rip is. Now, that's a bit of a bummer because I can't say that the box is mint, even if I did ever go to move it on. And my intention is not to move it on. I plan on keeping these figures for as long as I have action figures in my life, which will probably be forever. But, when you're spending upwards of $380 Australian, you kind of don't want this sort of stuff. Now, I'm sure I could email Mondo customer service and they'd probably send me out another box. But that's the last thing I need. It just feels wasteful. So I'm going to let this go. But that was a slight bummer. And, I want to be honest about all of this stuff of, I don't know if other people had that issue. If I was just an unlucky one, I would assume I'm an unlucky one. But when you open up the doors to the firehouse, this is what you're greeted with. Like real premium looking stuff. Even the inside of the doors are, there's artwork there. You can see the proton pack, Venkman, Samhain, Slimer's up there in the top right-hand corner. A bit hard to see in this photo, but I'll give you a better view shortly. Yes, you can see that tear. I can't help but notice it now that I've really pointed it out. But yeah, it is premium stuff. This is sort of the type of packaging that you get with a Hot Toys. And I'm down on Hot Toys. I feel they don't stand the test of time, and once again, they're very expensive. But this is really beautiful stuff. Like I cannot fault it. And then I guess we get to the main event, and here is what you get within that box and that packaging. You get Samhain, multiple heads, Peter Venkman, another head, Slimer, which is the most perfect real Ghostbusters Slimer we have received to date. You get a trap with a little Samhain falling out of it. Now, I've talked about people talking about how effortlessly it balanced and everything like that. I haven't played around with it a lot, but my trap cord isn't looped perfectly. It's sort of looped or wonkily. So Samhain, when in the trap, does fall over. Now, I'm sure I can take some time and re-loop it, and I will eventually get around to doing that. I hate doing that stuff. It's not my favorite thing to do. Putting stuff into poses and positions. On the next Refreshing Thoughts, where I talk about moving my collection around a lot, I'm not a great poser. I wish I was. I wish I had time. I wish I had an artistic eye and flair. But luckily, Mondo have done a lot of the work for me, because these figures are spectacular looking. Like, honestly, if you said I want a cartoon version of Samhain, Slimer, and Peter Venkman, I don't think you could come up with any better. You know, Alex Brewer is the sculptor here, and he does some of the best work known to the industry. And these are just perfect. The two Samhain heads, there's an angry one, which I was almost going to go with, but I like the creepy smile. It sort of fit into the Halloween vibe. The other one sort of looks like he's, squeezing out a fart. But that's the beauty of alternate heads. Everything pops on and off real easily. The Proton Pack unclicks and clicks in. I like how I'm doing the motion like I did it. I didn't find mine was quite as easy as what I've seen some reviews, because I've since gone and watched reviews. It was like, oh, well, now I can watch reviews. And some people, it's just pop, pop, pop. Mine was a little bit hard and a little bit of maneuvering, but still I was able to do it. The Proton Stream looks really cool. And we've got some bonus ghosts in cardboard form. They're just standees. I'm choosing not to display them. I'm just going to leave them in that. But I thought that was a nice little added bonus. It feels premium. And, I think when, you're spending $380 Australian, it would want to feel premium. These, just to be clear, these are not 12-inch figures. These are 6-inch scale figures. Now, that's Venkman. Obviously, Samhain is big, stand beautifully on his own with his robes. These are just amazing figures. I'll show you how I've chosen to display them. So they're currently on display in my lounge room, not in my toy room where I record Refreshing Thoughts. That's how nice these are. Like I display some of my favorite stuff, my books and stuff, on a bookcase in my lounge room. My wife and I have his and her bookcases where she's got a lot of her collectibles and books and spooky things. This, I will have all 4 Ghostbusters and all 4 ghosts up here. Obviously, I'm going to muck around with the configuration as they come in, but this is how it looks at the moment, and it's beautiful. And like, you can sort of see the 3D effect of the packaging popping there a little bit. And I rate them up there with the Storm Collectibles, or and certainly more premium than I think a NECA or Super 7 product. NECA's plastic always feels a bit brittle and like it's going to break at any moment, which I've been super critical of before. Nothing like this. Everything pops in and out relatively easily. They're really good looking figures. It's they are beautiful toys. Now, a lot of you are going to ask me the question of, are they worth $380? It's been a big discussion point about the cost of figures. And Real Ghostbusters, I believe, if you're to believe the stories out there, that it was very hard to obtain the license. And it's sort of like, you can obtain the license, but going to cost this much. So Mondo then go, well, if we have to pay this much to obtain the license, we can make you something really cool, but it's going to cost you this much because it's really expensive to obtain the license. And that just is what it is. That's, it's not even Mondo's fault. It's just the realities of a Real Ghostbusters line. It's why we haven't seen a lot of Real Ghostbusters figures over the years. As a huge Ghostbusters / Real Ghostbusters fan, I could not have these in my collection. The FOMO would be too great, and they are worth it to me. If you were a casual fan, I believe this price point is too high of an entry point for you, a barrier for you to get past. I do not believe any 6-inch figure pack is worth $380 Australian. I just don't. But that being said, I chose to spend that money because I really wanted these figures. And for that money, I've been delivered something that's definitely a premium item. But do I feel I got my money's worth? I feel Mondo tried their best to make it up to us because we have to pay this price because the licensing is really expensive. And that's really all they can do. It is then up to us to decide whether we have the money or whether, we can, go without not buying a few Master of the Universe figures to get this, or, Marvel Legends or whatever. You can't have it all, or maybe you do have it all. Good for you if you can afford that. But yeah, these are really expensive. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a lot of money. And, I certainly have a lot of thinking to do on how deep I'm going to go into this line beyond the 4 Ghostbusters. We have already seen Janine and her desk and everything, which ain't going to be cheap. And yeah, and I had to make a decision today, no less. It is October 31st, Halloween in America. It's November 1st here, Christmas tree time in the Fresh household. No, it's not too early. I'm not a December 1stist. But, Mondo announced that they would be doing a timed edition, glow-in-the-dark Samhain, with these 2 little goblin guys who release him from the containment unit in his follow-up episode, and this little sick-looking Slimer, which is very iconic if you watch the cartoon. And I kind of like this Samhain better than the regular release one. And I love the 2 little goblins and a Slimer. But, if I go to here, the Slimer and the goblins are quite small. They're in scale, but, they're not big figures. So when you're looking at that, it's not a 12-inch Samhain. He's probably about 8 inches tall, 9 inches tall. I'm not sure exactly. But he is a cool, amazing figure, and that looks amazing. I love his purple robes. I love that. And Mondo, as a show of goodwill towards me, had given me a 10% discount off my next purchase because of all the issues in waiting for Venkman and Samhain, which is why I say Mondo are awesome with customer service. Their artists are rad. They're everybody that works on their packaging, everything, like it's a good crew. That really are trying to give us the coolest stuff out there. And I saw that and I was like, that could almost be my Samhain proper, like that is really cool, and I toyed with the idea of getting it. And then I saw this. So I've blocked out some personal information there. I didn't do such a good job on a Discord and had my address up there for a little bit, which is pretty funny. I hope everybody sends me a Christmas card if I did note my address down on that post. But you can see it came to, with shipping, $171.56 USD. And with conversion that PayPal's offering, for every $1 Australian, it equals 0.63027 US cents. It came to $272.20 Australian. $272.20 Australian. So then I asked myself the question of, is this worth, to me, $272 Australian? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I've got to be responsible, which is not a common thing for me to say. I have a really cool Samhain and Slimer. I can't justify spending $272 on a figure that size, just in a different color and a different sort of type of Slimer, and the goblins, as much as I love those little guys. I will be sad I don't own this, but you cannot own everything. And I think Malcolm Hobbs on the Toy Power Discord, go support the Toy Powered podcast. That's rad. He said to me, well, I guess if there's a benefit, you're at least now not a completist, so you can start getting more picky and choosy. And that's sort of what it did lead me to, that of, you start going, well, am I going to get Janine? Where would I put Janine in my display. I can probably get the 4 Ghostbusters and 4 ghosts up there, and it's going to look really cool, though those ghosts are ginormous. I can make it work, and have a really cool real Ghostbusters display. How deep am I going to go? I have a HasLab Ecto-1 coming in, although that's probably going to go in this toy room out here. Um, you know, I don't think my wallet personally can stomach being super deep on this line. There will be certain ghosts that I will decide I can't miss out on that. But if they did a Firehouse or an Ecto-1, as much as I would love it, I don't know that I could afford it. Because, if this costs 272 Australian, what am I looking at? 1,500 maybe Australian for an Ecto-1, or maybe 1,000 for an Ecto-1, and 1,500 for a Firehouse, maybe 2,000 for a Firehouse. You have to decide as a collector, don't you, of where the line is. And I guess that was my line, of a repaint and a couple of little extra ghosts and stuff. It was like I can't afford that, and that's okay. It's okay not to be able to afford it, and I'm happy for everybody that can. I want everybody to be able to get as much of this stuff as humanly possible. We've waited a long time for this, so don't think this is me being negative. But I like talking about the realities of being a collector in the modern day. These are part of the discussions we all have. Maybe we don't have it with ourselves enough as we're clicking by or grabbing something off the shelf. It was another thing that, I talked about on the last Refreshing Thoughts, where I grabbed the 2000X He-Man and Triclops. And then I was sort of looking at them, and they were $26 each. So, $52 Australian. And then it was like, I'm not even sure I want these. Like, as I was going through my thing, it was like, I have a bad habit of opportunistic purchases, and it's sort of irresponsible, especially if there's no room and money and stuff. You get so excited about seeing stuff on shelves that you grab it, and then you sort of think about it later, and it's sort of like purchase regret almost, in a way. And look, you can move it on and everything like that to a collector that will enjoy it, but it's good sometimes to give pause and think about this stuff. For me, these are figures of a lifetime. They will be the ultimate representation of real Ghostbusters, and Alice Brewer and Mondo. I am grateful. I have pre-ordered. I'm already in. I've done it. Money's been spent. It's done. I have paid for all 4 Ghostbusters and all 4 ghosts. I got the deluxe versions. I could have just got Boogeyman, who's the ghost that tormented me as a child, and had him as my ghost. But I wanted all 4 ghosts, even Gash, because that episode stood out to me. A lot of people going, that's a really deep cut, but I remember being a bit freaked out about the idea of these ghosts trapped in his tummy and trying to escape and everything. So yeah, I was okay to sort of get that. It's it's an interesting time as a collector in terms of how much money we're going to have to give to these companies, going, here's really cool stuff. But that's we've got to wear our big boys and girls pants now. And, we'll figure it out. But, always put real life priorities first. These dopamine hits and these things that make us feel good, we don't want them to turn into something that make us feel bad. I've had moments where I've overextended for collecting, and that's something that's it's something I have to be held responsible for. Like, it's nobody else's fault, but it does give you pause sometimes. I wish I was a bit more restrained in my collecting than what I am. As you can see, I collect a lot of different things because they make me. I always say I'm trying to impress 10-year-old me. But yeah, I'm happy I've got these. Glad they're here. Bring on Egon, my favorite Ghostbuster, and Boogeyman, the ghost that scared me the most as a kid. I've seen some people in America started to get theirs. I'm going to be patient. I know it's coming. Hopefully the box isn't ripped. But yeah, thank you to the awesome Shine Worldwide. Go find them where all good music is found for our theme song. Thank you for supporting the channel. Yeah, the feedback I've been getting from everybody's been awesome. So please click like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts on this. Did you get it? What are your thoughts on toy pricing? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll speak to you sooner than you think. Thanks for watching.